Chris Wesseling, we've had him on before. He talks fantasy football, writes for NBCSports.com as well as Rotoworld. He talks of who you should like, who you should not, and more. As we head into the 2012 season, it'll only be a few months away. It's Chris Wesseling on the Sports Buffet podcast.
The NFL has really become year-round much more than it used to, and fantasy football, I think, has done the same thing. So we bring in our friend Chris Wesseling from NBCSports.com, also does a lot for Rotoworld. And Chris, I guess a lot of people start planning their fantasy football when the real NFL draft gets wrapped up. Was there anybody that you saw in terms of the draft that got put in a good situation to where he could benefit fantasy owners in year one?
I think the two most obvious guys are Trent Richardson and Doug Martin, partly because the nature of fantasy football, running backs make a quicker impact than any other position. Richardson goes in as a three-down back. I mean, a legitimate candidate to lead the NFL in carries, or maybe even touches out of that backfield. They don't have anybody behind him of notice. So I really like his situation. That, Peyton Willis finishes the top 2 or 3 fantasy back on a really bad Browns team 2 years ago. Their offensive lines should be a little bit better this year, so I like his chances. I think Martin in Tampa, that's a really good offensive line there as well. He can play 3 downs. I don't know if he will. He'll probably spend time with LeGarrette Blount, but Blount has been found wanting in several key areas like pass blocking and short yardage situations. So I think Martin has a chance to take that starting job there. I like quarterbacks. Griffin and Luck are both really. I expect them to play really well as rookies. I think probably you're looking at a quarterback 2 type of situation there. I wouldn't want them as my starter every week, but to have on your bench a little bit of upside, I'd roll the dice on them. I think at receiver, Justin Blackman is worth a gamble there. I'd be much more excited about him if he can beat out Blaine Gabbert at quarterback up. And that's about it at receiver. I don't see any other guys really coming on strong as rookies.
Well, when you look at Richardson especially, give me the situation if you're playing a dynasty league where you would draft him, and if you're just playing a one-year league, where you think he would get drafted in maybe a standard 10 or 12-team league.
I think he'll probably be drafted in the early teens among running backs and redrafts. So probably, early third round, somewhere around in there. I'd take him at the top 10 running back, so I'd probably take him in the maybe early second round in redraft. For Dynasty, I think most people have him ranked number 1 overall among the rookies. I prefer the 2 quarterbacks just because I see them as Hall of Fame talent, can't miss. And for Dynasty leagues anymore, quarterbacks are going to be more valuable than running backs going forward. As much as running backs get injured and as much as they're sharing the ball and using committees, I'd take Walker Griffin 1 and 2 and Richardson 3rd. But you can't really go wrong. They're all 3 going to be really, really good players. So I think anyone in the top 3, you're good there.
How about some guys starting their second year that you would expect to either have a surge or a swoon? I mean, I don't think Cam Newton can really exceed what he did his first year, but I don't know if I'd throw him in a total flat-out swoon category either.
No, I don't think he'll repeat his rushing touchdowns from last year, but his passing could get a little bit better. I wouldn't worry too much about him. Guys, I see Julio Jones. I could see having an All-Pro type of year, just blowing the doors off this year. He's a guy that I really like. These running backs. I get a couple of sophomores here.
Well, how about Mark Ingram? Does he get any better or stay the same or go worse?
Yeah, I think he will get better. I think they'll use him more. I think they like Sproles if they're passing down back, but I think Ingram will take that closer role and close up the second half of games, and I expect him to play a lot better this year.
Another thing that people have asked me is last year it seemed like the running backs overall might have been a little bit down in terms of what they normally score fantasy-wise. Do we see a resurgence of running backs in terms of point totals this year, in your opinion?
I don't think so. I think that trend is here to stay. NFL teams have figured out that the committees work better. I mean, the most efficient running backs per play in the league last year were guys like Sproles and Pierre Thomas and Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams, and Ryan Matthews, who are really committee backs. So, they're touching the ball and getting 6 yards every time they touch it, which you can't say for the guys who are playing every down. I believe I saw a stat where the 4 highest yards per carry throughout the NFL for every team in the league are the last 4 years when committee attacks have really blossomed. So I don't see that trend reversing at all. And if you throw in, the defense roles where you can't really hit a guy, I think teams are just going to keep passing.
I know it's hard because there are some free agents still out there that have not been signed, and I know it's hard to say, I like this guy when you don't know what team he's going to be on. But is there anybody out there that is unsigned that you think could still make a fantasy impact given the right situation?
Well, those guys are few and far between. I guess maybe Braylon Edwards, if his knee gets healthy, maybe he could come in and be a second receiver for somebody. Maybe Dallas Clark. I know the Bucs were talking about signing him today because they're going to trade Winslow or release Winslow. So maybe Dallas Clark. I don't see Cedric Benson doing much, and I don't see Plaxico Burress doing much either. Those would be like the most obvious guys.
What gives you the red flag on Benson?
He was running on fumes last year, I think. I just don't see any situation right now where he'd be more than a clear-cut backup. Everybody pretty much has their backfield settled right now.
All right, let's just run off some names here for you, and you give me your opinions on these guys, maybe whether to buy, sell, or what type of starting position. Let's go with Joseph Adai. He's got a new home in New England.
I wouldn't even draft him at all. I'm not sure he's going to make that team. He's going to have to outplay Shane Vereen and Stephen Ridley there, and I'm not sure that's going to happen. He doesn't play special teams, so he might be just wasting a roster spot if he doesn't beat those guys out.
Do you like any of the guys in the New England backfield, or is that normally a situation just to kind of steer clear?
It normally is. I might take a late round flyer on Ridley or maybe even Vereen, but I wouldn't draft any of them as more than a running back 4 probably.
How about Peyton Manning, a new situation in Denver?
I think I'd rather let someone else draft him. I'm not crazy about him coming off of those surgeries and going to a new team, so the rapport might not be there with the receivers. And the Broncos have a pretty tough non-division schedule. I'm going to try to get Eric Decker on all of my teams, but I'll let someone else take a chance on Manning.
Is it a situation, too, though, where if you're in a league where maybe Peyton Manning can kind of be that guy that you can take as the forgotten quarterback after people take Rodgers, Brady, Breeze, so on and so forth? Could you see a situation where he slides to maybe round 5 or 6 in some leagues?
It just depends on who's left on the board. If those top 6 guys are gone, and then you start having to think about Matt Ryan and Eli Manning and Peyton Manning and Rivers, I'd probably take him in that area, but I'm definitely not going to reach for him.
2 running backs that are really, I hate to see them on the same team, Matt Forte and Michael Bush.
Yeah, I don't see much changing from Forte's point of view. I mean, he's not going to get goal line carries, but he really hasn't been getting goal line carries the last few years anyway. I don't see his value changing much at all. I think Bush will be the clear-cut backup just as he was in Oakland when McFadden was healthy. So I guess I'd just draft that, Bush as a handcuff, and that's it.
I think a friend of mine, I've told you about this before, we play in a keeper league to where if you keep the guy, you lose the draft pick 2 rounds ahead of what you drafted in the year before, i.e. I think my friend drafted Forte in like the 5th or 6th round and now would have to give up a 3rd or 4th round pick to keep Forte. Would you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. No.
I think he'll probably be a 2nd round fantasy pick, so you're still getting value there.
Let's go with Calvin Johnson. The only thing that worries me about him, I guess, is he's on the cover of Madden, and normally I don't believe in jinxes, but that's kind of one that I actually am a little scared of.
I'm with you. I don't believe in jinxes. That has no bearing whatsoever for me. I think he's a no-brainer, the best skill position player in the league, and he's pretty much unstoppable even with double and triple coverage. So he doesn't scare me one bit.
Where would you have Matt Stafford in your quarterback rankings right now?
I just did quarterback rankings, and I believe I had him 5th, but I think those top 6 guys, Rodgers, Breeze, Vic, Brady, Cam Newton, and Stafford are all pretty much interchangeable. As long as you get one of those guys, you're in really good shape. I really like what Detroit's doing. They're kind of running their offense like New Orleans now, where they're just so pass-heavy and efficient at it that Stafford has very little downside as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, and I was going to say, do you think we get less and less concerned about Stafford's health because he really hasn't missed any significant time that I can think of in the past year or so, and it seems like he is becoming more durable?
Yeah, I think every year removed from those shoulder injuries, you feel a little more confident in him.
You talk about the top 6. I really want to curious, why do you keep Michael Vick in that top 6? Because I think a lot of people after last year, even with injuries and such, were probably kind of down and ready to bail on him. But I think you say not so fast.
Yeah, I think he's definitely in the top 6 because people concentrate on the previous year at the expense of all other data. I mean, the year before that, he was the best player in fantasy and won a lot of trophies. So, I mean, what's really changed there? They still have the same receiver, the same tight end, the same running back. To me, as long as he stays healthy, he has the highest upside in fantasy football.
Same situation, a league where we lose a pick 2 rounds ahead. A friend and I get to keep Michael Vick and Cam Newton, and I think we only lose a 13th and a 16th, respectively. If you had those 2 guys, though, as your starter, what type of quarterback would you want as your third? Just because it seems like with Vick and Cam's style, they may be a little bit more susceptible to injury just because they like to run a whole lot more.
Are you starting 2 quarterbacks every week?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, third quarterback. I wouldn't really worry about style. I'd just go with best quarterback I can get.
But we don't.
I know you have to worry a little bit about injuries, but I think every round that draft, I just go for the best player.
So we don't need to reach for anybody early if we got those 2.
No, I don't think so. Not at all. Go get your other positions filled.
Let's talk about another guy who had a pretty few good games last year before succumbing to injury and getting knocked out for the year, DeMarco Murray.
You know, I kind of like him. I'm assuming that Felix Jones will be more of a change of pace, third down guy, and Murray will play the early downs. Maybe he'll see a little bit of third down work, too. I like him as kind of a high-end running back, too. I don't know if I'd want him as my first running back.
In terms of dynasty potential, how high would you, just off the top of your head, probably have him? I mean, is he a good long-term guy?
I question his durability. He's been injury-prone. I mean, his rookie year and then even in college he was injury-prone, so I kind of question his durability. I'd see him more as, I'd probably rank him about 15th or so at running back.
I think it was a year or so ago, people, I speculated that Maurice Jones-Drew was coming in to camp out of shape. I don't think we certainly saw that effects on the field. Where do you have Maurice Jones-Drew ranked in your running back hierarchy?
I have him 7th. Not much has changed from last year. I think he could get a few more scoring opportunities this year. They have a little bit more talent on offense. So he's just the same as he's always been to me, really solid.
Does MJD, if you take a guy like him, would you even bother with his handcuffing Rashad Jennings?
Yes, I would. I like Rashad Jennings, and he's the clear-cut guy there, so I would take Jennings late in the draft.
And you know what? Another running back situation I think kind of clouded or made a lot of people scratch their heads. Mike Tolbert leaving San Diego for Carolina. Kind of talk about both situations of how it helps or hurts Ryan Matthews and what does it do to Mike Tolbert?
I think it helps Ryan Matthews tremendously. I think out of any back with 200 touches last year, he was the most efficient per-play back in the league. So now he's going to get more touches, more carries, more receptions, and more goal line work. I actually have Matthews as my number 2 running back overall, behind Arian Foster this year. Tolbert, I don't see him with any fantasy value at all. I wouldn't draft him. He's going to be playing fullback in Carolina, and they have 2 much better runners ahead of him. So I think he's going to be a special teamer and a fullback, and not a fantasy player.
Chris, as always, we appreciate your time. We'll keep up with you throughout the season and in the preseason. Final question, though, is there anybody, regardless of position, maybe 1 or 2 guys that people think are going to be great that you just absolutely do not see and you would classify them as busts? And then the other way, in terms of people that, somebody think is done, washed up, never was, that you, I think, could actually provide some good fantasy help for us this year?
I wouldn't go near Michael Turner. He's a guy that was running on teams at the end of last year, and the coach has already come out and said they're going to reduce his role this year, and I still see some guys across the internet ranking him as a first-round pick or an early second-round pick in fantasy, and I just don't see that at all. I think I'd steer clear of Vincent Jackson this year. I just think the quarterback downgrade from Rivers to Freeman, and wide receivers often struggle going to new teams, so I'd be careful of him this year. Maybe somebody who's been written off. Let me think for just a second. I'd roll the dice on Javed Best. I think, if he stays healthy, he was a top 10 point scorer per week last year, so I'd take a chance on him, and I don't think Steven Jackson is washed up. I might grab him if he's still there in the third round or so.
You talked about Tampa Bay real quick with bringing in a college coach in Greg Schiano. Does that worry you at all in terms of a coach in terms of Buccaneers production as well?
Well, it's not that he's from college that's my concern. It's that he was so run heavy as a coach at Rutgers. I mean, really run heavy to the point where they were running more than 50% of the time, which you don't see very often in the NFL. So that concerns me. They went and picked up a running back early in the draft, and they got a huge offensive line. I just see them running the ball so much that maybe their fantasy guys, the receivers and quarterbacks, aren't going to be so great.
Chris, like I said, we appreciate the time. We look forward to doing this again, and get ready. It's fantasy football season will really be going before we know it.
I know. My pleasure, Bob.